What's up everybody, Touchdown Raiz here, and in today's video on Muscle Monday, we're going to be going over the Touchdown Raiz. And again, we'll be going over the synergist, agonist, antagonist that I did whenever we were talking about the gainer from last time. I'll also be going over some biomechanics. And again, this is not a tutorial. There's been plenty of tutorials talking about Touchdown Raiz, but this is just looking at it from a more physiology and anatomy standpoint as far as the muscles, the biomechanics, and all that good stuff. So let's get right into it. Now, when we look at what makes a nice touchdown rise, or at least what helps us get the most amount of power, is Benjamin Towles went over this in a video on his story a long time ago. If you want some actually really good breakdowns and stuff, go follow Benjamin Towles. But he talked about with Michael Guthrie and some of the Japanese trickers that what you see almost is that the angle that they take with their body and with their legs is very circular. So it's very almost like up and down, similar to a back handspring. When they take that first step forward, right, everything's in a straight line, and they get that arm and they bring it around over the top, right, allowing them to have a sort of back handspring-ish TDR. And so when we have that nice circular touchdown rise, we're going to see that the hand is always will hit first, right? So that's going to be what's guiding you at least to the ground. You're going to have a smooth alignment almost for your hand will hit first here, and then right behind is going to be your leg. So we're looking at this kind of like from a top-down view, and then this back leg is going to be able to come in and swing any which direction that you needed to go. I twist left, so I'm drawing it from the left perspective. It can just as easily come in from the right and swing to the right if you're a right twister. Now, where we kind of seem to have problems, especially whenever people first learn TDR, you're going to notice that they go in a very oval or ellipsoidal shape, right? So everything's going to end up being very sideways. That first step they take and that swinging leg is going to come very off to the side. Everything's going to be out here. It's the same thing with their arms. Instead of kind of coming down and having a nice, right, circular shape, they're going to almost twist their chest and come out like this. Now, the problem becomes if they can't get that foot to come up enough, they're going to end up landing with either their foot and hand landing together first, or it's going to be just very rapid. It's going to be like, and then they have no kind of power to get out of it. Or they might end up just doing a normal rise and then their hands touch, and then their hands will touch. And it's kind of well, that wasn't a touchdown rise. And then, and of course, there's not enough separation. So instead of kind of having a nice hand foot, it's just either or again, they all hit together at the same time. So that's going to come obviously mostly with practice. If you've seen any Michael Guthrie tutorial on Touchdown Raiz, he always, again, go back or use a line, right? Find a nice straight line, practice your Touchdown Raiz, practice your gummy, practice your rise. So that's my advice for that. But now, when we talk about the muscles that are used, so I'm mostly only going to focus on the shoulder and the shoulder girdle, just because people don't really have a problem with their hips whenever they're doing this, right? I'm sure it's happened, but no one's really ever kind of hurt their hips from a touchdown rise, or no one's ever kind of messed themselves up over a touchdown rise. Usually it's I tweaked my elbow, or oh, my shoulder feels weird, I crunched on my elbow real bad for this touchdown rise. So I'm gonna go over mostly the anatomy of the shoulder for this video. Alright, so now I'm going to break down the touchdown rise into kind of quote unquote 3 different phases. So phase 1 is going to be, so when we first start, right, this is whenever we're going to go into extension of our shoulder. So this is the part where we're starting to actually reach back and pull this arm behind us. Now, again, I'm not gonna go, because with all of tricking, right, we are a very one asymmetrical sport. So as one side is pulling and back, the other side is pushing. So I'm not gonna go over the non-working arm. I'm mostly just gonna go straight over this arm that's actually putting in the work. That's what people have the problem with. So phase one is extension, right? So as we're coming down and getting ready to now go into phase two, which is whenever we're going to actually open up both the shoulder and our elbow to start getting ready to actually come around to about here. So this is phase one. This is the beginning into phase two. We're turning all the way through, and now we are upside down, quote unquote. And then phase three is whenever we actually have landed, and now we're going to go into our swing. Okay, so for phase one, so the triceps, the posterior fibers of the deltoid. If you didn't know, your deltoids are also divided into 3 different fibers, along with your triceps, your deltoids, and your lats are all going to be crucial into pulling this shoulder behind you and getting ready to go into that touchdown rise. Now, in phase two, excuse me, whenever we go into, we're going to now, whenever we start to open up, we actually are going to have to use our biceps and some of the muscles in our forearms to help us now turn to the outside. And if you didn't know, you have 2 different ways to supinate or turn to the outside in your arm. You have it from your shoulder, and you also have it from your elbow below. So, because as you can see, I can turn my hands to the outside without having to turn my shoulders. It's the actual action of having to open up and pull back and open up with my shoulders that really gets us that second phase into that touchdown rise. Now, so once we go to here, now you're going to see, as we're pulling up, you're going to see the anterior and the medial part of your deltoid start to actually help you pull up and across, along with that bicep and the muscles in our forearm that help us turn to the outside. And then also our rhomboids, which are right here, which is the middle in between our scapula and our spine, is going to also help pull, and also our traps, which insert right here, I want to say, in this crest, not up here at the top, but here in this shoulder crest right here, help us pull and start to go into that final phase of phase 3. Phase 3. So phase 3 is going to be the finishing, whenever we have now landed on our hand, and now we are using that arm to guide us. We get that foot underneath us, and then we ride it all the way up into whatever skill that we want. So for this, really it's going to just about be your whole entire arm, which is going to be like your agonist, but your deltoids are obviously going to take the brunt, for the most part, of having to keep that shoulder nice and tight and stable and not letting it jerk in back and forth. Your biceps and triceps are all, and the muscles connected into your forearm are going to help and try and keep this elbow in place and keep it from going all over the place, which I guess maybe kind of makes it more synergist than it does agonist, but regardless. And so yeah, so that's phase 3 into whatever. So now let's see what we can't find whenever we're looking at our synergists for this movement. Honestly, for our synergists are going to end up being all the tinier, defined, just minuscule muscles that are all wrapped intricately within your shoulders and within your biceps in your arms. So things like your brachialis, things like your pronator, supinator within your forearms, all the extensors and flexors that help you keep everything tight, especially whenever we're here in our phase 3. Any of like the teres minor, all the minor muscles that are all intricately wrapped in that arm. So it's much easier to try to kind of go over the agonists or the antagonists for the Touchdown Raiz. When we talk about the antagonists, I'll break it back down, right? So back into our 3 phases. So when we talk about our first phase, when we're going to extension, our pec major and our anterior deltoids, the front of our deltoids, are really going to be our main antagonists, right? Because they're being put on the stretch, and our posterior deltoids is actually what's kind of like squeezing and bringing this up. Now, that changes when we go into phase 2, where we start to open up, and now we start to pull this arm up and over the top. So from here, now the posterior, or the anterior, sorry, the front and the middle, our deltoids are now going to be the main, right, agonists and flexors, while our antagonists are going to be our posterior deltoids and our lats, right? So you'll see that as I transition from here and come up, that now this is going to relax, and it has to be put on a stretch to allow me to come all the way up to my head. And finally, phase 3, like I talked about, I did say, and for the agonist, that you can almost think of like the whole arm as the agonist, but when we really look at what's happening, so I'm going to change my words, when we actually look at what's happening, right, we're in arm extension whenever we hit the ground for our Touchdown Raiz. Now, the triceps and the deltoids are going to be the main agonists, right? Those are what's popping, that tricep is popping up that shoulder, popping out that elbow, and these shoulder muscles are actually keeping this joint in place and helping us to stabilize as we come through into whatever it is that we're doing when we finish that Touchdown Raiz. So our main antagonists are going to be our biceps, our forearm flexors, and our lats, right? Because they have to allow us to go to at least be open up, so when we hit the ground, our foot hits the ground, now we pick everything up and go from there, right? And something that you might have also noticed is that it's almost like a constant like push, pull, back and forth between the different muscles as we go into whatever it is, right? So hope y'all enjoy this content, especially from like a more anatomy and physiology side. Please come back on Wednesday, where I will be going over again muscles to help strengthen this shoulder girdle, and even maybe a warm-up for y'all, because I know that a lot of people tend to struggle mostly with the shoulder when it comes to the Touchdown Raiz. Obviously less so with wrists and elbows, because typically if that happens it's because you landed and you tweaked it wrong, but a lot of people seem to really struggle with having that shoulder mobility, or at least being able to really handle the pressures that Touchdown Raiz puts on your body. So, David Rodriguez, Stomp Tricking. Follow me on Instagram at stomp.tricking. Follow my personal Instagram page, hotrod_intricate33. Please subscribe, like, let me know what other tricking moves you want me to go over and analyze, and I'll be happy to do so. I hope you all have a great week. Peace.